Hi, everybody. Welcome to a special edition of Teaching Crypto. Please help us out. If you have not done so, please pause for a second, hit that subscribe button. If you haven't done so, share the show. We are very close to 2,000 subs, and hopefully this is the show that gets us over the mark. So if you could take a very kind and friendly moment and help us out, we would greatly appreciate it. MrFOMO, we're going to talk about something today that's going to greatly impact the future of crypto, and it's going to be huge. And so we want to go over it. And we also want to talk about Bitcoin very briefly today before we get into things. Bitcoin, just a bit of about an hour and a half ago, there was over a $700 million buy of Bitcoin. And what that did is that pumped Bitcoin up over 69K. And so
it wasn't me.
There,
I didn't do it.
So you see right there, it was not you. I thought for a second I interrupted you. You got me there. It was not MrFOMO, unfortunately, but there it is right there. Yesterday, we were at 67. Now we're at 69. I have a feeling that sometime in June, we're going to go to all-time highs. We'll see if I'm right. Just like we kind of went down a month earlier than people expected, I think we're going to go back up a month earlier than people expected. Can't tell you if it's going to be June 1st. Probably will not. But I do think we are in for a green month very, very soon. But let's get into this bill, because this bill is going to drastically impact not only Bitcoin, but the rest of crypto.
Yeah, the bill is called the FIT 21, or the Financial Innovation and Technology Act for the 21st century. It is designed to enhance consumer protection in the digital asset market by improving transparency and accountability among market participants. Now, that's the shorthand for it, right? There are some pros and cons to this bill as I see it. And let's run through the pros first. Now, it establishes a regime or a regulatory framework to regulate U.S. markets. And so what they're going to do is they're going to set up a list of cryptos that are safe for U.S. investors to invest in. They're going to say, hey, this group of cryptos right here are cryptos that you can invest in, and you can be confident that you're not going to be rubbed, right? And so that's one of the things that it's attempting to do. It's also attempting to clarify jurisdiction between the SEC and the CFTC. Without getting into too many of the details of what describes a fully decentralized crypto, decentralized cryptos will be under the CFTC's jurisdiction, and those that are considered to be still somewhat or fully centralized will fall under the SEC's jurisdiction as securities. This also seeks to create a group of individuals and businesses, or I don't know, it's like an innovation and technology group that would oversee innovation and technology in U.S. crypto markets. And so these are things that I think are good about it. Now let's talk about some of the cons of this. This is going to add heavy compliance costs across the market. What you're going to see is, like, if you opened a business and you had to be compliant with the EPA, the Environmental Protection Agency, you'd have to buy equipment to test the water or the ground, and then you'd have to buy equipment to clean up. And so you would incur those compliance costs. The same thing happens in the financial industries, not in the same way, but they've got to pay for people and software, and for the time and effort that it takes to come into compliance with these regulatory bodies. The other problem, and this is going to be the biggest problem, is that it's going to bifurcate the global market, or the global crypto markets. You're going to have a US only market, and then you're going to have a global market. And that's going to hurt US investors, because it's going to limit access to a lot of riskier cryptos, but ones that might make you a millionaire.
Let me pause for a second. I think, let's be honest here. Let's keep it 100% real. There will still be people that will buy those tokens. They'll just be doing it illegally, and they'll be taking risks in their own hands. And so that's up to that person. Now, me, I'd want to follow the law. That's just me. You know, I would entertainment certainly, but we wouldn't recommend you breaking the law, because if you do get caught, you gotta pay the crime. I do, and so I think, to be honest with you, some of the people, the degens that really want to buy that stuff, are still going to find a way to buy it.
Oh yeah, without a doubt.
Now, what it will do is it will discourage new people from buying some of those tokens. However, my feeling is it will make the space a little more welcoming for newbies, and it'll give them a little more confidence that what they're getting is legitimate.
Yeah, I think that's really one of the pros, is that it's going to make the crypto market less of that dirty place where you might be able to lose all your money, and it gives it that safety net of a regulatory framework and the U.S. government backing it up.
And here's my thing: something is deemed a commodity, and they start doing great things, they're going to get a lot more money pumped, because people are not going to be trying to buy. Some people will still do it, but less people will be going into a meme coin that was created by a 12-year-old using daddy's credit card in 20 minutes.
Well, I mean, that's something we also get into now. Oh, not all of these are being created by 12-year-olds in 20 minutes, right? But this will stifle some of the creation and innovation in the industry, because when you tell these crypto companies you have to work within this silo and stay within this silo when you're creating your cryptos, now you're stifling innovation and creation in a nascent industry, an industry that's just getting going.
You could decide you're not going to attract the U.S. investor and hope that there's such a high demand that you force pressure on the government to allow your token to be used. But I do like the idea that these people can't go rogue. It can't be. So to be honest, and I've said this before, this is anything new, I think complete decentralization is kind of a myth. I don't think it can really happen. You're always going to.
I think that's why it's important that they set up a regulatory framework for what is decentralized and what's not decentralized. And so I think that is also going to set up a jurisdiction battle between the SEC and the CFTC at times, because there's going to be cryptos that, you know, are on the fence. They may not be completely compliant, or they may be completely compliant according to one body, but not completely compliant to the other, or they may drift back and forth depending on what they do in the market. And so it's going to set up that jurisdiction battle between those two regulatory bodies, and I think that's going to be a problem. But I think overall, as far as the cons, it's going to make U.S. cryptos less competitive in the global market, and they won't be able to innovate as much. However, that being said, I know I went through a bunch of cons. I think this is fantastic. One, it garnered bipartisan support in the House, and that's important, right? In an industry that's not loved by the banks, that's not loved by politicians, this crypto bill got a bunch of Republicans and then Democrats to cross the aisle and pass it. So I think that's an important thing. It also signals to Washington, D.C. and the rest of the U.S. that crypto's here to stay, and that it's something that needs to be dealt with, and dealt with now. And then it also says that Congress is going to be the one that decides regulation and not the regulators. And I think that's important. The SEC has been slow to act, and they've done things that are contradictory for the market and for the space. And so I think when you see that Congress, not that they're any better, but they seem to be doing a little bit better than the SEC in getting this across the line. So I think when you see that, I think overall this is fantastic for crypto.
Well, there always had to be some type of regulation coming at some point. I think we realized that the way things we're never going to be it wasn't good for the industry, to be honest with you, or the customer, because you just had too many bad players. And then there was not a lack of accountability. Now, yeah, Sam Bankman-Fried's in jail, but what about Stephen Ehrlich? What about the people from Celsius? They're not in prison. And so you can sit here and argue that they're not. You can sit here and argue
finance, or
what you can sit here and argue that what they did wasn't illegal, but they stole money from customers and they deceived customers. And so there has to be some type of regulation. Otherwise, the space is not going to get the respect, and you're going to scare away money. Bitcoin is one thing. Bitcoin is its own thing. let's put Bitcoin aside. Bitcoin was going to survive whether crypto had regulation or not. That's the reality. Let's keep it real. It's the other tokens that the legitimate players that I think need this, because some of these projects that are real projects that are actually trying to do real things should be better funded, but the money is going in other places. We've talked about there are a lot of tokens, and tokens are created daily, and a lot of these have absolutely no use case at all, zero. And so what are they? They're quick money grabs, okay? But that's gambling. That's different. Not everyone wants to gamble for 24 hours, okay? And some people want to put money into something and know 6 months, 9, 12, 18, 24 months, they're going to get value back. We talked about Bitcoin and ETH passing that litmus test, and maybe not so many others. And I think this will help other cryptos, and I think it will get rid of, not completely, some of the negative connotation of the word crypto and the industry itself. If people say, okay, there are some basic guidelines that people have to follow, not anyone can do this. Okay,
Right.
it goes against the theory that it's a bunch of criminals trying to steal people's money. No, these are real people. These are people, like you said, trying to innovate, trying to do good things, and they're playing by some rules. Now, the rules can't be too strong, because then you do limit innovation. But I do think if someone doesn't want to play with these rules, no one is stopping them, right? Just people won't be able to buy legally in the United States. And there still will be the reality. People that want to buy will still want to buy. They will take their own risks. The people that don't. And so I think long term, even though this is not perfect by any means, something like this was necessary.
Well, follow me on this logic. I think if you provide regulation, not only will more retail investors come in, but I think more institutional investors will come in, especially into these altcoins that become, quote unquote, decentralized or centralized, but allowed to be traded in the US. I think you bring in a lot more money to the market once that happens. And so when you look at it that way, I think this is a really great thing, because like you said, it provides that framework, it provides that safety net, it provides the list of cryptos that the US is saying, hey, this is okay to put your money into. And so I think not only is it good for the space, but I think that it will make the money that's going into the space explode, because it's safe now, or it's at least much more safe than it was before.
Yeah, sometimes perception and reality are the same thing, and sometimes they're not. And I think for investors, they want, not everyone, but they want some type of clarity that the money's not going to disappear in 24 hours, or the thing's not going to go down 98% in a month. So the big negative is the gains might not be as explosive, but they might be more steady. I still think there'll be great opportunity.
Yeah, I still think that without these crypto bills, I think there's great opportunity. I think this bull run is going to be explosive by itself. But you add that into it, or you add this into it during the next crypto or during the next bull run, and I think you're going to have a much more explosive entry. You might see something more like the last bull run.
Absolutely. So, guys, remember what we think. We think things are going to get heated pretty soon. So you want to keep it to this channel. Like I said, if you have not subscribed, stop what you're doing, do it now, because there's going to be amazing opportunity coming up. If you haven't shared the show, we would greatly appreciate. Hopefully, next show, we got a hot one for you. We got our hot picks for June. And because we think Bitcoin's going to recover, these are going to be outstanding selections. So for Mr. FOMO, this is AZcrypto. You guys have a wonderful afternoon.
See ya.